are lost in the snow. Your feet are numb blocks of ice, wrapped in leather shoes meant for a gymnasium floor, not a mountain blizzard. You find a trailer, a miracle. Inside, there is shelter. There is a propane tank filled with gas to heat the room. There are lockers. Inside those lockers, there are enough sea rations and dried meals to feed 5 grown men for an entire year. But you don't eat them. You don't turn on the gas. You curl up on the floor. You pull a sheet over your head, and you wait. You lose 50, 80, 100 pounds. You starve to death, freezing, surrounded by the very things that could save you. What were you so afraid of that you wouldn't even open a can? Fear is usually rational. If a wolf chases you, you run. If you are hungry, you eat. But what happens when fear breaks the logic of survival? What happens when the mind convinces the body that safety is actually a trap? Tonight, we aren't just telling a ghost story. We are dissecting the most baffling case of mass psychological collapse in American history. The case of the Yuba County Five. 5 men who went up a mountain, walked past safety, and died of silence. But before we reach the snow, you have to understand the car. Because the car is the first lie. When the police found their turquoise Mercury Montego months later, they expected it to be broken down. They expected a dead battery, a blown gasket, a reason for abandonment. The keys were gone, but when the police hotwired it, the engine roared to life on the first try. The gas tank was a quarter full. 5 men pushed a perfectly working car into the snow, abandoned it, and walked into the abyss. Why? February 24th, 1978, a Friday. The boys, as their families called them, were a close-knit group of Yuba City and Marysville. Gary Mathias, Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, Ted Weiher, and Jack Madruga. They ranged in age from 24 to 32. These weren't outdoorsmen. They weren't hikers. They were gentle souls, all dealing with mild to moderate intellectual disabilities, except for Gary Mathias. Gary was different. He was the catalyst, the wild card. He suffered from schizophrenia, managed by a strict regimen of stelazine and cogentin. But that night, nobody was thinking about diagnosis. They were thinking about basketball. UC Davis was playing. The boys piled into Madruga's Mercury Montego, his pride and joy, and drove 50 miles south to Chico to cheer on their team. They won. Spirits were high. They stopped at a convenience store, buying Hostess pies, a Snickers bar, a quart of milk, and sodas. Just 5 friends, laughing, fueled by sugar and victory, heading home to prepare for their own basketball tournament the next day. They should have been home by midnight. They never made it home. Instead of taking the straight highway south to Yuba City, the car turned east. It began to climb. It climbed past the foothills, past the snow line, into the Plumas National Forest. The road turned from asphalt to gravel, from gravel to dirt, from dirt to rutted slush. This is the first impossible variable. Jack Madruga, the driver, was obsessive about his car. He hated bumps. He hated dirt. He guarded that paint job with his life. Yet he drove that low-riding sedan up a jagged, boulder-strewn logging road in pitch darkness. Why go up the mountain? I want you to place yourself in that back seat right now. Squeeze in between Bill and Jack. Smell the stale air, the chocolate, the faint scent of nervous sweat. Look out the window. There are no streetlights here, just the towering silhouettes of pine trees closing in like prison bars. The heater is blasting, but you feel a chill. You can feel the tires slipping on the mud. You can hear the undercarriage scraping against rocks. Screech! A sound that makes the driver wince. Why aren't you turning around? Why isn't anyone screaming, "Stop"? You look at Gary in the front seat. He's staring ahead. Is he seeing the road, or is he seeing something else? Something chasing you? The car hits a snowbank. The wheels spin. The engine whines. Silence. You are 4,400 feet up. You are in dress shoes and light jackets. And outside, in the dark, you see a light. This is where the story fractures. There was a witness, a man named Joseph Shans. He had gotten his own car stuck up the road earlier that night. He was suffering a mild heart attack, terrified, waiting for help in his cold vehicle. He saw the Mercury Montego pull up behind him. He saw headlights. He saw a group of people get out. Shans called for help. He screamed into the wind, "Help me, I'm hurt!" And this is what he saw. The lights went out. The voices stopped. He claimed that later, a pickup truck parked briefly, then left. He claimed he saw flashlights, but every time he yelled for help, the figures in the dark went silent. They hid. They weren't looking for rescue. They were hiding from it. Sean survived the night and walked down the mountain in the morning. He passed the boy's car. It was empty. The window was rolled down. But here is the detail that keeps investigators awake at night. The snow around the car wasn't deep. With 5 strong men, they could have pushed that Montego out in 5 minutes. They didn't even try. They walked away from the car, uphill, deeper into the snow, and they didn't just wander. The tracks found later showed they walked in a single file line, organized, directed, into the dark. The search began. It was the largest manhunt in the area's history, but the blizzard erased everything. The snow buried the mountain, and the Yuba County 5 vanished into the white static. Months passed. Winter turned to spring. The snow began to melt. In June, a group of motorcyclists were riding through a remote area near a trailer maintained by the Forest Service. It was 19 miles away from where the car was abandoned. 19 miles, uphill, through waist-deep snowdrifts, in loafers and sneakers. Inside the trailer, they found a scene that defies human instinct. The window was broken. Inside, on a bed, lay the body of Ted Weiher. Ted was a big man, 5'11", over 200 pounds, a gentle giant. When they found him, he weighed barely 100 pounds. His feet were severely frostbitten. Gangrene had set in. But it wasn't the frostbite that killed him. It was starvation. Here is the horror. Ted lived for weeks, perhaps months, inside that trailer. Next to him on the table, a gold watch, a lighter, and a wallet. And surrounding him, a locker was opened. It contained cans of fruit cocktail, spaghetti, pork and beans. Some were opened with an Army P-38 can opener, but dozens more remained untouched. In a storage shed just outside, there was a propane tank. The valve was closed. All they had to do was turn a knob, and they would have had heat. In the same shed, there were enough dehydrated military meals to feed all 5 men for a year. Ted Weiher lay in that bed, shivering, his body consuming itself, while salvation was literal inches from his hand. He wasn't alone the whole time.
The way his body was wrapped, tucked in tightly, head to toe like a mummy, suggests someone cared for him. Someone tried to keep him warm. Who tucked him in, and where did they go? This brings us to the question I need you to answer in the comments, because the experts cannot agree. Some psychologists argue this was learned helplessness, that because of their disabilities, the men were conditioned to wait for a permission to eat, or they didn't understand the propane system. They froze because they were waiting for an authority figure to tell them it was okay to survive.
But I don't buy that entirely. Survival instinct is primal. It overrides manners. It overrides training. The other theory is the Mathias factor. Gary Mathias, off his medication, spiraling into a paranoid schizophrenic episode. Did he convince the others that the food was poisoned, that the heater would alert the entities chasing them, that the light in the darkness wasn't rescue, but a threat? Here is the question. If you are starving to death, what power on earth is strong enough to stop you from opening a can of food? Is it madness, or was there something else in those woods that terrified them more than death itself? We found Ted, but the woods were not done revealing their secrets. The thaw continued, and the forest spat out the rest of the boys, and their locations tell a story of desperate fragmentation. Bill Sterling and Jack Madruga were found miles away from the trailer. Scavengers had gotten to them. All that remained were bones scattered near the road. It seems they never made it to the trailer. They collapsed on the walk up. The exhaustion of that 19-mile death march claimed them first. Ted Hurt, or what was left of him, was found near the trailer. His own father, who had joined the search party, was the one who found his son's backbone under a bush. A pair of Levi's and shoes were nearby. That leaves 4. Where is Gary Mathias? Gary, the man who knew how to use the outdoors, the man who served in the army in Germany, the man who arguably led them on this march. His shoes were found in the trailer. Think about that. Ted Weiher was wearing Gary's shoes. Gary's feet would have been swollen, perhaps ruined. He might have swapped. Or perhaps Gary took a different pair of boots found in the trailer and walked out. Gary Mathias has never been found. Did he walk out? Did he survive long enough to melt into the wilderness? Or does he lie in some ravine, his bones turning to dust, holding the secret of what happened in that car? Let's go back to the trailer. Imagine the nights. Ted is weak. He can't move his legs. The others are somewhere, maybe dead, maybe watching. You are lying in the dark. You are hungry. Your stomach is cramping with a violence that makes you weep. You know the food is there. You can smell the metal of the cans, but you don't move. Because the something is outside, or worse, the something is in the room with you, telling you to be quiet, telling you that if you crack that can of peaches, the noise will bring the end. The silence of the Yuba County 5 is the loudest sound in the history of true crime. It is a testament to the fragility of the human mind. We build cities, we drive cars, we follow rules. But take us a few miles off the road, turn out the lights, and introduce a seed of panic, we don't just die, we let ourselves die. The trailer is gone now, burned down or removed. The road is still there. The snow still falls. If you ever find yourself driving near the Plumas National Forest and you see a car abandoned on the side of the road with the window down, don't stop. Don't look for tracks. Just keep driving, because whatever walked those boys up that mountain might still be hungry.